your father, I don't know if you can get into this, but your father's a radiologist,
Exactly.
a prominent radiologist.
Yes.
You told me a story about the Gaia production. I'm meeting with my friend from Gaia on Saturday in the evening.
Yes.
So maybe if you can talk about that, maybe you can talk about that, because that's kind of was interesting.
I love it. Absolutely. So, yeah. So this is really just me reporting what anyone can watch, on Gaia. I'm forgetting the exact name of the series, but it's like, I think it's either a 5 or an 8-part series. And it has the guy who's like described as the equivalent of like 60 Minutes reporter of Mexico. I don't remember.
Jaime Maussan, yeah.
Him, yeah, he's great. So, and then there was a radiologist, a female radiologist from Colorado. There's a Russian scientist that's like the head of some very big Russian organization that was involved. So it's an international team. There was an explorer. I don't think he's officially an archaeologist, a French guy that was part of the team. And basically what they discovered, and I could have the numbers wrong, but it's roughly 5 different skeletal remains that are mummified that were found in Peru, I think Nazca, Peru. And what they have is no two are identical. They're different sizes, just like you would expect in a human variation. Yeah. What's unusual, they're different mummies. I can't remember the number of fingers, but they have a completely different internal structure, including one has an egg inside of it. They have different ribs. They have different skulls. They have different arms. Where we have, I'm not a radiologist, but I believe our forearms have 2 bones. They have 1 there. So there's major anatomical differences. And they actually take x-rays of these. They did DNA evidence of them. I think they date back to 1700 years ago, roughly, with the carbon dating. And they took x-rays of these all. And the different radiologists examined these x-rays, and they took samples on film. Anyway, it's an amazing thing, and it should be on the cover. This should be headline news. This is what everybody should be talking about, and nobody's talking about it. So I showed it to my dad, being a radiologist, and he tends to be, he can be very open-minded about this, and then he kind of gets more science. And this is, he's questionably skeptical, but he said his impression when he saw the x-rays, we freeze framed them. And he said, it would be just as amazing if somebody faked these mummies as if these mummies are real, because the intricacy of the veins and the nerve structures, you can't, the very fine nature of an x-ray, the detail, you can't fake that. And also the amount of energy that they would spend making 5 different, just slightly different sized mummies. And these are very wildly different from human. So one has like a rib cage that's more like a snake. The ribs go down all the way. Very bizarre. Anyway, so he was very interested in it, and he said, he asked me, would you contact Gaia and ask them if I can get a copy of some of these x-rays so that I could look at them firsthand. And I did write to them, and they did not reply to that request. So if there's any way that he could get a hold of them, you can look him up. His name is H.P. Jander. So it's Hartwig, Hartwig, Peter Jander, Jander. And he's done a lot of, he's been a radiologist he's now retired. He retired in 2018, the end of 2018. But he's worked, gosh, very, very long time. And he's done some things for the first time. I can't remember all of his contributions to the field, but yeah, he's quite a significant radiologist.
And he was pretty impressed with what he saw there in terms of
extremely.
And it offered to aid in looking at this stuff and giving his advice. There's a relationship between you and your father. I mean, have you thought about that a lot? Where it's sort of like he seems to come up on a lot of the stories, and he sort of plays sort of like sometimes the skeptic, sometimes he's your supporter.
Yes.
Do you think he's tied into this in terms of the overall picture, that he may be playing a role in terms of this whole thing?
That's a really interesting angle. I hadn't picked up on it. He's the person that he's like basically the first person I go to whenever I have an experience, because he is generally interested in this. He has wavered, like recently he was very close-minded about it, which just like hit me, like I was like, where did this come from? But he so he's interested. He's a thinker, and he likes to discuss ideas. So yes, he is definitely a soundboard for me. We haven't always been aligned. He's much more skeptical. He has, all this whole career on science, and he said that himself. He's like, it's really hard for me because you're an architect, which is a different kind of science. And he's like, but my whole career is science. And he's like, the world, is very black and white. But he read Dolores Cannon, and he felt that her method was scientific, and her work could be peer-reviewed and repeated, and it should be published. So he really respected her work. He read 2 of her books. He's reading John Mack now, and I do. Yes, I would say yes, absolutely. Certainly now, because he's experienced things, which I was so excited that he did. We also, I've become a bit self-conscious because I could literally talk all day. We have had so many experiences together. There was a craft. We eat dinner on the terrace outside when I visit often during the summer, and we have had a physical UFO on what direction? Due south from the terrace, materialize and hover. And that particular experience, I remember, I looked up, I returned to Chicago, and I was just curious about it. So I Googled to see if there was anybody else reporting it. And there was actually another reporting of that same craft being followed by military jets a few hours later, or I can't remember the time frame exactly, but I believe it was in Huntsville, Alabama. And we're there in Birmingham, Alabama. But we saw it, and I wrote to the people that wrote that experience. They didn't write back to me, so there was that. So yes, I would definitely say that. I know that the other thing is, as I've opened up about these topics, my mom has talked about her own experiences, which she didn't consider UFO, but supernatural. So as a child during nap time, she saw in the Philippines an angelic child on a cloud in the room. And it was bizarre because she's Filipino, and it was a white baby with blue eyes and blonde hair. And I'm like, well, why is it white? Wouldn't it be like brown? But, and she asked her family about it, and her mom said that she had not seen anything, but that her mom had. So my mom's grandmother had also had sightings. And then they had a large farm out in the Philippines, and in one of the pools, and I'm not sure if it was a fish farm pool or what, or something, but they had these bodies of water, and some of the people that worked for them reported that in the morning they were checking one of the pools, and there was a strange humanoid creature swimming in the water. I don't remember more about it, but something about that they couldn't explain, and it disappeared. So anyway, so they do have a history, I think, more on my mom's side of experiences. I haven't heard on my dad's side of the family. My dad does have, there's a scientist because he's Eastern Germany. And so one of my uncles, my great uncles, I guess, my dad's brothers was a rocket scientist in Germany, and he disappeared under strange circumstances at the end of the World War II. Supposedly he was murdered for his watch, but by Russians. But in fact, no one, what was very strange, there's a lot of strange things about his disappearance, because one, it was reported, there was an obituary reported in a kind of an international news publication that my family was perplexed about, because none of them wrote this obituary and no one published it. So they're like, why is there this strange national publication writing an obituary about, our family member that we had nothing to do with? And anyway, and the body was never allowed to be seen. The mom wanted to see her son. What they saw was his boots, and he was covered with a fabric. Supposedly he was out on the street, and some Russians saw his watch and they wanted it, and they killed him. And then he disappeared. And he's supposedly buried, but we don't know if he's there. So it is interesting, that did happen on one side of the family. But other than that, no, I don't know. But yes, I think that everybody, even my brother, my brother he's also, I don't know why, but it's harder for him to hear some of these stories, even though he's open to it. It's just like Some people, though, it's like they get to a certain point and it's like, yeah, there's UFOs, but ooh, are they really contacting you? And, you know, oh, I mean, yeah, I left out a really big story. I just realized. So yes, I definitely think we're all involved, you know. And I think the really the important thing that I'd also like to say is I know that there's nothing special about me. My experience has nothing to do with me being special. Everyone can do exactly what I've done. It has with me being open to it and me giving the energy to it. And anyone can have this. And so for example, my boyfriend, who's generally not that interested in this, for him, supernatural stuff is not that unusual. Growing up in the Philippines, they have a lot of superstition, what we would call superstitions. So he's just like, yeah, you have this, cool. I'm not really that excited. But we were watching, I think it was an eclipse with my family. And it was like my mom, my dad, and Joel and I sitting out, staring at the moon. And at one point during that, my dad said, I think I just saw a flash next to the moon. Or I think actually I said it, or maybe he said it. Anyway, both my dad and I saw it. And my mom happened to be looking down and Joel happened to be looking away. Fast forward, my parents, it was getting late, they went in. As they went in, Joel turned to me and he very sincerely said, how come I never see a flash? Boom, instantly there was a flash. And I said, did you see that? And he said, yes. And I was like, there you go. And then he was just like, oh, okay. You know, it didn't rock his world. He was just like, oh, okay. And so, you know, but my point being, you know, my brother, it's funny when I tell him a lot of stories, I'll say, from my perspective, it did this. And then from my perspective, it did that. And he's like, oh, so you think you're so great. How come everything's from your perspective? I'm like, well, that's what CE5 contact is. It has to do with your own consciousness. It's not that I'm saying I'm great or special. It's just, that's what the experience is. And in Chicago, my first experience with Joel, I remember I was at this dining table that I'm sitting at right now. And this was in 2014. And so I'd lived here for 10 years or 11 years, I think it was at that time. I was on the computer looking up dental insurance for Joel. And I just scanned out at the view for a second and there was this bright light. And I thought, what is that? And I thought they were doing construction on a building, you know, down in the view. But I'd never seen that light before. And like I said, I've lived there for 11 years and I do look at the view. So it was above this Huron Consulting Group building. Or actually it was just one building south of it, which I can no longer see because now there's a building there. But anyway, there was this bizarre light orb and it was glowing. And I was so excited that I screamed for Joel to come in. I asked for him to turn off the lights and I just kept my eyes on it. We turned off the lights, we stared at it, and it just, all it did was it was about 5 feet above the building. It hovered over in one of the columns going up the side of the building. It had kind of a clear story, like a 2-story open area at the top. It's just like an architectural design element. It just hovered down and I'm getting that confused with another story. Anyway, this first time it just came down, went over the side of the building, and then on an angle, it descended in front of the building, but then it flashed out before it went behind another building. And it was just the weirdest thing because it was this weird glowing thing. It was the brightest thing in the sky. And all it did was move over and then go at an angle down the front of the building and then disappear before being obstructed. And Joel saw it, I saw it. The only difference between our stories is that I saw that right when it flashed out, there was a bright red light for a second. And I thought for a second, oh, maybe that's a helicopter. But no, it was gone. I reported that to MUFON, that story. It was exciting. And Joel and I shared it, so that was kind of cool. Fast forward, right? I have it all. I have video footage of this one. After Shasta last year, a similar orb visited us, the group, when we were in Circle. Except I know 3 of us saw it. The rest of the group thought it was the space station. We had the space station happen this year. This was brighter than the space station and it did different things than the space station. So for example, last year what happened is it came just above the trees and then it came to the edge of the trees. It hovered above the tree. It was stationary above a tree about 5 feet above the edge. And then it came in toward our group a little bit, very, very slowly. I can't remember if it came down or not, but it just hovered there. It wouldn't move. And I was so excited. It was so close. I thought it was going to come down and materialize into a being. And maybe it did, and we just don't have that memory. But anyway, and then it just shot off up into the sky and it disappeared and it became red before it finally faded out of sight. But anyway, fast forward, I think that's the same object. I don't know, but a few weeks after Mount Shasta, I was on the phone with a client in Chicago. We were talking, and I'd just seen some documentary about something star people related, and I was sharing it with her. And I was also at the sink at the kitchen. And when I turned around, there was that bright light again in the sky. And I saw it and I just knew. And I watched it, and it flew, and it did an acrobatic maneuver where it went down in front of another building, directly dead center of this building. It went down the center beam, vertical beam, and it just went down. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I know it's coming back. I know it's coming back. And it kept doing aerial phenomena. And it's so much that I actually got another phone, and I started, I think actually on the call that I was on, I could actually go through, put her on speaker and start recording. And so I started recording it. So you can hear my really spastic excitement of it. And not only was it doing its thing, but there was other activity going on. And so I was trying to film all of it, but I did get it all on film, and you can actually clearly see it hovering. It wanted me to film it. It hovered in the air, and another plane comes. All of a sudden, it disappeared. It dimmed down, and then a plane comes by. As the plane passes, it comes right back up. So it was interesting. Then it went in the center of another building, went down at an angle to the corner edge. There's this architectural detail. It's a 46-story building, and it went right down the concrete face of. It's like a 3-foot wide concrete strip that goes from the ground all the way up, and it went right down that corner, and it was illuminating the building. And you could, with your eye, you could see it much better than the phone, but on the phone you can still see it. And I shared that with the Shasta group, and it was just interesting how that was received. I had a friend that's interested in all this, and he kind of stopped talking to me after that one. Claimed he couldn't see it. He kept telling me it was an airplane. I'm like, do airplanes go in front of buildings and illuminate them? My brother, the reason I remembered it is my brother kept telling me it's a drone. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be pretty hard to fly a drone 46 stories up and get it straight down and, right at the corner of a building. And you're not allowed to do that. I actually called the building and asked the building if they were doing any kind of filming or activity. And they said, no, they weren't. And they were actually alarmed, and they wanted to report it. They asked me to send them the video. I did. They probably couldn't figure out what I was talking about either, but I do have the video still. I have many, many shots of this video. So my brother left it at saying that it was a drone. I go a few days later, I'm back at my parents' house. It's early in the morning. Everybody's asleep. Like 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe 4 o'clock. Anyway, I forgot something in my car. I go out to my car, and I'm walking back to the house, and at the north end of the house is oriented north-south. There's that light right above the house, maybe 10, 15 feet above it. And it's about the size of a basketball, and it's just glowing. It's this beautiful, soft white light. It's kind of bobbling in the air. It's just kind of bouncing. And at this point, I was so excited. And so I was doing all kinds of mental things, like asking it to come to me, asking it to move certain ways. It wasn't doing that. It just started slowly moving south over the house. So finally, after all that, I got my phone out, and I thought I was recording a video. I actually just took a photo of it, but I do have the photo. And in the photo, when you brighten the photo, the stars don't show under normal brightness, but when you really brighten it, the stars show in the background, and you can see the object and how much brighter it is than the stars and how big it is. So anyway, so then I told my brother that story, and I'm like, oh, so you still think it's a drone? You think somebody's flying a drone over our parents' house at 5 o'clock in the morning? And his reaction was just silence, But he's had experiences too. Not as dramatic, but like a red light following his car, a little ball of light following his car. And also he was gardening, and he was excited doing his gardening. And he's like, yeah, I looked up and there was something up above him. Anyway, and I was like, that's because you were so excited. You were in their frequency, and they wanted to reward you. So anyway, I don't know. I think yes, I think it happens to the whole family. It's what you're really ready for. I think that many of us probably have more experiences than we realize, and we are not at a state where we can mesh that with our 3D world. So because of that, to protect us and allow us to continue to have an experience here and not lose our minds, we don't remember more.
A lot of people get into the good alien, evil alien. What's been your experience? How do you see that whole?
I think this is like probably the most significant topic right now. As I believe disclosure is happening. It has happened technically, depending on what you want to call it. I do not believe in evil aliens exist. if you want them to exist. It has completely to do with your consciousness. So I have had somewhat dark experiences, nothing really terrible, but it coincides with your mental state. Dolores Cannon says that there are no evil aliens. She has passed. She had a very optimistic and positive outlook with star beings, and she never had a negative experience that she reported. Some people do have them, and I'm not saying that they don't have them. I absolutely believe you. But what I would say is look at your own mental state. Where are you? And if you raise your consciousness, I firmly believe, if you are having a negative experience and you send it love, it will change into a positive experience. And there are examples of that. I had an experience where I binge watched BBC Planet One, whatever it's Earth series, and I watched all these nature things about, you know, oceans and mountains and the forest, the rainforest. And then after 3 days of doing that, I had this strange experience where fish were swimming on the ceiling of my bedroom.
Tell me about that. Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah. So I woke up and I've had other experiences, but I'm a little embarrassed because I could talk forever. But anyway, I woke up and I could just feel it. There's a feeling when something's happening. There's like an energy vibration that's going on in your body, and I could feel it. And I was just kind of in this relaxed, half asleep, but I was awake. And anyway, there was an energy, and so I was just relaxed, staring at my ceiling. And I have an exposed concrete ceiling. And what happened is initially, it was as if a layer of the ceiling, a transparent layer, like of the wood, the plywood wood grain in the concrete, just dropped down about 6 inches below the existing ceiling. And it was just semi-transparent, and it was moving like a conveyor belt, one direction. I believe it was going west. But what was strange is the walls were the same, and the light fixture that's in the middle of the ceiling, nothing was going, it was just the ceiling. It was as if you just said, only the concrete is going to do this. And so I was just kind of staring for a while, and I'm like, what is going on? Why am I seeing my ceiling move? This is weird. And you're getting this kind of weird, warm, fuzzy, tingling feeling. So it's just kind of fun. So you're just like, okay. So you're just watching. And then all of a sudden, a little black fish, just like they would if you, I guess, in a stream, you know, they're moving upstream, and they're just kind of wiggling but holding position. They came in. They just came in. I guess I don't know if they came in from the wall, but they were there floating down below my ceiling, a whole school of them, you know, a dozen or so. And I was like, whoa. And I was just kind of staring at it. And then I believe there was a turtle, a giant sea turtle. That's a reoccurring theme in my experiences, was upside down on the ceiling, just in one corner, there's a sea turtle. And I was like, what? I just couldn't understand it. Then I got a little uncomfortable because a giant crab, what turned out to be, I believe, giant crabs, but they were kind of a flesh color. They had really long legs, and they started literally coming through the ceiling. And I think everything was upside down. And they were coming through the ceiling, these legs. And I thought at first, oh my God, is this a skeleton coming through my ceiling? But a group of them came, and they were just hovering, just like crabs would in shallow water on my ceiling. And so I just stared. I don't remember, I guess it eventually just faded out, but the experience lasted several minutes. And I just was left scratching my head. I was like, what was that? But now, after this weekend and everybody talking about how important our frequency is, I truly, and specifically that the contact experience is filtered through your own mental state. So if you're in fear, you're going to have a scary experience. And that's why I say this is the most important thing, because I believe there's a lot of propaganda out there. There's so much bad propaganda out there to scare you. And so if you are scared and you have this experience, you might experience something very scary. But if you understand it's love, I just remember, whatever intelligence is out there, have they done anything to us? You know, we don't have any weapons supposedly to fight them now. So do we need weapons to fight them in the future? You know, I'm still around. I have friends that are like, you shouldn't talk about this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I talk about it, and I'm still around. Nothing's happened to me. I'm not scared. Anyway, you know, I do believe it was the frequency that I had, that I've been watching that BBC, and maybe that's them teaching me. I always try to think of it from their perspective. That's what I told my dad. I'm like, my dad's like, why did this happen? Oh, why did they do this? I'm like, Dad, you're so lucky. It's like, you had a witness. You had Mom with you. Also me, sort of, but you know, Mom checked the car too, because if it only happened to you, Dad, and then you try to tell us, we're all going to say, maybe you didn't see the key. But now we can say Mom didn't see the key either. So you're not alone. And I can tell you, I put the key there. So, so you know, that validation, I was like, that is so nice. Put yourself in their perspective. You want to have contact. You don't want to scare them. You know, it's a tricky thing. How do you do it? And actually, I've said, before that first glowing ball experience happened, when I was on the computer doing dental insurance, before that happened, actually, I had been on the phone with my brother, and I had said, I'm kind of scared that they're going to show up and I'm going to see them. And I'm scared because I was like, even if just a teddy bear appeared on the dining room table, it would scare me at that point. Now it wouldn't. And so now it probably will happen. But I said what I would prefer is, off in the distance, a light appeared and it slowly came closer. Now what I meant was it would come closer and come into the room and materialize. But that didn't happen that I'm aware of. But it was literally just a few days later that light did appear off in the view. So it's like you really are controlling what's happening. You have so much more control than you realize if you are open to it. And if you ask for it, tell them mentally, just tell them what you want to experience. And if you really want it, and you want it for the right reasons, my experience is it happens. I have done sky watches many, many times, but my energy wasn't there, you know, and I just kind of was looking up and I'm like, hey guys, you know, show yourself. Nothing happens. But when I really need it, they do show. That's it. It's not like just a little stupid toy. There's intention behind it, but they're there and they want to make contact and they want us to wake up. And because I think we all need to grow spiritually, and we need to get to a point where I think there's technology out there that we could have access to, but as long as we want to use it for evil, or to weaponize it, or to hurt each other, you know, because that technology could be used either way. And if you're going to do that, then you're going to have, we're not ready. If the potential is still there that we would weaponize it, then it won't. I think it won't happen. I don't know. I do not have the answers. You know, I have so many questions. But I love the Rama group because I get answers a little bit, you know, to some of those questions.
Okay, last question. Ultimately, what do you think we're dealing with, and why are they here?
So I will say that my source for this would be mostly Dolores Cannon, and I think also in answering that, what I'm working on right now is Dorothy Isaac's story. I think everyone should read this story. The documentary is called Capturing the Light.
Hold it up a little bit. Okay.
And the book is called Beings of Light.
Okay.
And the book was written by Peter Gutila. I'm probably destroying his name, but he's the guy that did the documentary. And so just as a reference, because I think she answers it better than I do. Her story is just, you know, for like 3 decades she was filming, and JL, her family was against her except for her granddaughter. They all thought she was crazy, but she continued to do it. She had contact with the beings. She filmed them. She used 3 Super 8 cameras and would film them simultaneously. She lived just above Washington State in Canada, and she's passed now. And but anyway, she has the most amazing footage. You know, I mean, talk about documented. She's over 30,000 feet of Super 8 film that was captured using 3 cameras. So each night she would just cycle through the cameras to get it. And in this, there's I just read this and it just blew me away because it really helps me understand my experiences. But there was a flash of light, what'll appear as a flash of light on one frame. So, you know, each frame is 1/18 of a second. In one frame, it'll just be a dot. The next frame, it'll be a countless number of dots. And then the next frame, nothing. So that's in 1/18 of a second. And sometimes in that one frame, it'll be a whole scene of a city or a landscape that's not where she is. Or it'll be a scene from the air, looking back where she is. And she asked them, how is this possible? So one is the other scapes, I believe, are portals, perhaps from where they're coming. And so in that one instant, she got a window in to another scene from their world. And I can confirm that from personal experience. But she also had one, you know, the one where it was up in the air. She said, what is this? How is it up in the air looking back at me? But I don't think she was in that one. It's just where she was. They said, in that flash, we took you up to where we were and you were still holding the camera. So it filmed down and then we put you back, but it was so fast that you didn't know. You know, so it's like, whoa, that's some serious technology. But they've known her for a long time. And I believe these are actually our how to put it. I hate to step on people's religious beliefs or anything like that, but I believe in a way they had to do with our existence. And they are the keepers of the garden, or the custodians, to borrow from Dolores Cannon, 2 of her books. But basically, these are people that have been there before us. And we are one of their projects. But we're also them. We're multidimensional beings existing in a multiverse. So we are them, and they are us. We have the ability to experience, I believe, to experience everything there is to experience. Having the illusion of being separate individuals and having individuality, which is an illusion, I believe, it allows you the experience to be greedy, or, you know, a whole range of experiences when you're not a hive. And some of those are great and wonderful, and some of them aren't. And I think they're trying to maximize the greatness of being an individual, that perception. They're trying to maximize that, but temper it so that we don't kill each other. And I think many times, different civilizations, it doesn't work, and then we kill each other, and they're just trying to tweak it so that they get in the mix where they can evolve and not kill each other, but still have, I think some of them, I've read, I think it was in, I read too many things, so I can't remember, but I think it's Dorothy Isaac, where they talk about the extraterrestrial, the star people don't have fear like we have, so they don't understand it, and they have to, sometimes they'll, it's Dolores Cannon custodians. It was an experience. It was a woman that was abducted. She's a hypnotist person, regression person, and she was driving from a conference through Santa Barbara. It was ironic. I was in Santa Barbara at the same time when I read the story. And she was taken up. She asked why. They said because they wanted to know what the experience was like for us, because they don't understand fear at this particular level of being that they were interacting with. And I thought that's like, wow, that's interesting. So they were trying to improve their technique, but it really, it's like you just ask the questions and you get the answers generally. That's been my experience. Not everything is. It has to do with how important it is to you and how sincere it is. So whenever I'm at a real low point or a real high point, or just that real honest, whatever, heartfelt, then I watched a documentary about a guy who was supposedly claims to be in a secret space program, Emery Smith. And they asked, why did you get out of it? And he said, he talked about an autopsy he did where the body was still warm. And I believe it was a being that had one eyeball. And he showed actually a drawing, an artist rendering of the being, which was this emaciated kind of Michelin man with one eyeball. And I thought, oh, that's so terrible. Because his feeling was that this being didn't need to die, that we had killed the being. And so just before bed, I just thought, because I believe that consciousness of that being is still alive. And I said, let me just say an apology to that being. And so in my mind, I just apologized to it for, it losing its life and what we'd done and the senseless killing. And immediately I had an image of the being, but it was much healthier and bigger, not like the drawing that was shown on Gaia. And it was a thank you. And I was blown away. I was like, whoa, so there I had this wonderful experience, this visual experience. But when we do it in group, I think my mind is too split up trying to concentrate with doing the protocol right or whatever. Generally, group experiences, meditations, I don't get the visuals as clearly. I will get some stuff, but it's not usually as intense. And I'm just like working on it. So I'm working on that. But other people can do it. They can slide right in a group experience. Like at the cave, nothing happened to me, but it was fine. I enjoyed nature.
Oh, isn't it beautiful? Is there an ultimate experience that you'd like to have?
Oh gosh, oh wow. I truly believe that if I say it, it will happen. I would like to master astrally traveling. I'd like to be able to do that at will. I would like to go up into a ship and know that I can come back. And I love group experiences. I love having witnesses. I would love to do it, but I think you have to respect where everybody else is. I've had I am very thankful for the experiences that I have had. I guess you have to be careful what you ask for. There's also something really exciting about not knowing all the pieces. And I think this situation that we're all in, we all become kids again, and we're all curious, and everybody has a piece of the puzzle. And I love the social dynamic, because one thing that's amazing that I've observed in these groups of people that are interested in star contact and learning more is it's not about how much money you have, what degrees you have. It's about what's your experience? What do you think? And we all are a piece of the puzzle. And so it's like, I don't know, it's this beautiful thing. And you meet people and you make wonderful, deep contacts that you don't normally have when it's just, you know, what kind of car do you drive? And you know, how many houses do you have? Where do you vacation? And I think you see the shallowness of that. And it gets you back to that kind of kid excitement. And, you know, I don't know. So that is kind of probably the greatest gift that we don't realize that we're all getting, is this wonderful ability to each be a piece of the puzzle. And they're not to be this, you know, this kind of material world, kind of materialistic world, kind of steps back. And I think that's so beautiful. So I love that. That's my favorite part. But yes, I would love some group experiences. I'd love to astrally travel, and I'd love to go on a ship, of course. And I'd love to go to another world. I'd love to be able to go to other worlds. I'd love to visit with them regularly and remember it.
Is there a way people can contact you if somebody has a story that
sure
might fit into yours? If you got a contact detail, or do you have a website or anything?
I used to have a website. It got corrupted. But I have my email, I guess. Would that be the best way?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's my name, first initial J, and then another J, and then ANDER @gmail.com. So looks like J Jander, but it's J Yonder @gmail.com.
Well, Jan, I'm telling you, it's been an honor. I can say I've spoken to a lot of people in interviews, and you're one of the most articulate storyteller I've ever heard. I mean, incredible. I've heard this 3 times now, these stories, and you do it very well. And I hope that we meet again at Shasta or other conferences. Or are there other conferences you attend, or you have maybe plug your CE5 group that you're a part of?
Yeah. So that is CE5 in Bloomington, Indiana. Jeff Becker, who wrote Paths to Contact. I would love to plug his book because, like I said, each chapter is basically just somebody saying, this is how I got into this. That's my favorite question. When I meet people, I love to say, why are you here? You know, because something brought you here. And I love hearing people's stories because it's a piece of the puzzle. Anyway, and Jeff is, you know, his background being like a science engineer. He has some computer company programming. He's very, he says, if you told him he would be doing these CE5 groups, you know, a couple years ago, he wouldn't believe you. But here he is leading meditations. And that's one thing I'll say also is what's happened with me, and I've heard other people's experiences. We were doing a guided meditation last year at Jeff's, and I happened to be catching up with a friend from the group that I hadn't seen in a while, and I was really excited. We were enjoying sharing stories because I actually, believe it or not, have even more stories. But we were excited, and I think it was that excitement that we had. It drew a being, is the only way I can describe it, to us. And the being during the meditation asked me, just mentally, I got a download that said, hey, can I join you for a moment and experience what you're experiencing? Can I like merge with your body? And you know, I wasn't really, this was my first time having this, and I was just like, okay. I was like, sure. And what I felt, I didn't realize it, but I jerked, and the other people confirmed it later. But I jerked, and then I got this weird smile on my face. And I was still there, but there was a weird smile, and I'm like, what is this? And I could, anyway, then eventually, after a few moments, it went out, and then I got this love vibration, and it was just really nice. It was a thank you. And I wasn't going to share that with the group because I didn't know how to share that, and I didn't know how to confirm it. But the second we broke meditation, a person opposite me said, there was a being behind you. And I was like, oh, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, actually, yes, there was. I sensed it, and the being actually merged with my body. And then the people next to me were like, is that why you jolted? And I was like, I wasn't aware that I jolted. And they're like, yes, you jolted. You had a big jolt. And I was like, oh, I guess so. Yes, that is why. So anyway, that was exciting. And I think I've heard other people have had similar experiences where a being will ask to merge with you. In Capturing the Light, there's an orb that goes into one of the children of Dorothy Isaac during her interview, and it actually is captured on film. And she says that she was so camera shy, and then suddenly there's this strange thing, she's not camera shy anymore. And you can see the orb go into her body. It's amazing. And in Capturing the Light, there's also another orb that they don't talk about that I've seen on the footage, because the orbs come in while they're interviewing people, and they do recognize that. And maybe they did recognize the later orb, but they just didn't talk about it. But there is another orb that shows up in the footage. It's a fun movie. I've watched it 4 or 5 times. I keep rewatching it, and I learn more. It's amazing. A still from her Super 8 camera, if you film it today, will still spark. It causes sparks on new cameras. And she asked, and they said the energy that's there, reproduced in any medium, any format, is still there, which is,
Wow.
you know, so it's like, wow, okay, that's a different kind of physics. So it's exciting. I don't know. I love all that.
It's an exciting world we live in, that's for sure. I mean, especially when you sort of catch a glimpse of what's actually going on, and whereas most people are still sort of walking around in a daze, as they're just doing their simple daily tasks. They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, I just hope there are forces out there, and I think a lot of people sometimes get Tom DeLonge is one of them. I feel he's a little misguided, and I know his heart is in it, and he believes.
Yeah.
I wish he could have some perspective to look at what he's doing and what he's saying, because yeah, it's such a beautiful experience. My own friends that I grew up with, you know, that know me, you know, a lot of them confess to me. They're like, you know, it's just the whole topic. It scares me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so sad to me. It's so sad. I'm just like, look at me. I'm not possessed, and I'm fine. You know, it's like there's nothing to be scared of. So unless you are scared, and then yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
well,
I thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes, Jan, it's been an honor to talk to you, and I'll be in the Chicago area next year in August, but hopefully we'll see you before August at a CE5 event here or there or whatever.
Love to.
And I've learned an awful lot from you, and I was just riveted before, and I'm still riveted to your stories, and I'll see what I can do. We'll stay in contact because we're, you know, in a number of groups together. And yes. I will follow up on that thing for your father. And
I can give you his contact. Yeah.
Anything else you need from me, let me know. And together we'll help bring some light to the world.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you for your work. It's such an honor to meet you. That was such a great surprise. I knew your name, and when I met you, I was like, why does he look familiar? I just thought you were someone from the group, but and that's why you look familiar. And then I was like, oh my God, it's Grant Cameron. I'm like, I've watched Grant Cameron. So that was very, and it's so exciting because my introduction to your work was that you were a nuts and bolts guy, which is where you came from, which I think is wonderful, and that you could adapt. You could adapt as you got more information. You could adapt your reporting. And I think that's true science. That's true science. Not ignoring the weird stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thank you for your work, and it's such an honor to talk to you, and all this is so exciting, and to share.
Yes. Wonderful. Let's talk again soon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Pleasure. Okay, Desta, have you got?